Hello everyone and welcome back to House of Chi Yoga. Today I'm excited to share a different view of the studio with you. So today we have this little corner angle view with my beautiful House of Chi mural and our beautiful artichoke slash lotus lamp. So let's get started. Today I'm going to share some of my favorite hip mobility and strengthening and stretching movements. So I'm not going to be doing it like we were holding for a long time in a class. This is mostly just to show you the movements. You can do them along with me, and then you can take them with you wherever you go. You can do them before any kind of movement. You can do them after as a stretch. You can just pick up the ones you really love by watching it and then adding them throughout your day. If you tend to have really tight hips, which is a pretty common thing, then just go ahead and watch this video, do it with me real quick, get the moves in your body and use them as much as you want. I pretty much do something similar to this routine every time I start to do any kind of movement with my body, whether it's within a yoga class, jujitsu, I'm jumping in the pool to swim, whatever it is, I get my hips moving first. So I'm going to face a little bit slanted so you can see my movements a little bit better. And I'm going to take my right foot and either lay it in front of my leg or I'm going to bring it on top of the hip crease. Now this tends to be a little bit more difficult earlier in the morning or if you haven't started moving yet, but keep a flex in the foot so we're protecting the knee joint. And then we're just going to walk the hands back. And as I breathe, I'm lifting up tall through my sternum as I'm pressing my knees and my hips down to the ground. We'll take a few breaths here. Feel a nice stretch underneath the psoas. You can feel it all the way into the hip flexors. You're also getting some nice work through the chest and through the wrist as well. And then I'm going to tuck my chin, bring my ribs in, and then walk it forward. So check in with the flex in the foot. Make sure it's flexed there. I like to go palms open just so I can be nice and relaxed in the upper body. Draw the sitting bones down, lengthen forward through the crown of the head. If you have it in you, which I've already taught class this morning, so I'm nice and flexible already, I'm going to bring my forehead all the way to the ground. Let's go ahead and bring it up. Lean to one side. The other hand is supporting the leg and then just moving it around. You can support underneath the leg. You can open up into some circles. And then we'll go ahead and switch sides. So now I'm going to take the left foot, stack it in front or on top of the hip crease. Active flex, protect, open up the chest. So as I inhale and lift and breathe, I'm also drawing the knees and the hips back down to the mat. And then we'll tuck the chin to the chest. Go ahead and walk it forward and then come into your round. So remember, the sitting bones are working down. The hips are staying heavy. You're lengthening through the crown of the head. And I'm going to go ahead and go all the way into my forward fold, forehead to the mat. And then bringing it back up. Now I'm going to lean to the opposite side, support the leg, open it up, any kind of movement. This is just a good chance to listen to what your body wants to do. And then we'll go ahead and go back down to seated, legs extended out in front. Move through the feet, the ankles, the toes. So I'm always trying to wake up the ends of the body, the feet, the hands, because it's all connected. The hips, if the feet are really tight, the ankles are really tight, then it can play a part in our hip. Okay, let's go down onto the back. And from here, I'm going to start with one foot down and one knee into the chest. Make sure the low back stays down. You're pulling the knee into the chest. You're keeping the navel to spine and the back down. Now hold, keep pulling, and then release and extend the leg. Bring it back in, hold, keep pulling, release. Let's go one more. This time we're going to keep the tension, but we're going to pull it towards the outside of the body. Now as you release, just let it go to the outside. Pull it in, release, and pull it in. And then bring it back through center, any kind of circling or movement. I like to make sure I go both directions with whatever I'm doing. And now I'm going to take my fingertips and find my hip bone, and I'm going to press just to the inside of my hip bone. So I have the hip bone, I'm walking about 1 inch in, and now I'm on the inside where those muscles are connecting to the hip bone. So I'm going to re-engage my back to the mat. I'm going to put pressure on those muscles, and then I'm going to move my leg around. I just like extending it here. You can do anything else that's calling to you as well. And you can feel those little muscles in the hip, across the hip bone, kicking back into the fingertips. And then to go a little farther, I'm going to take my legs straight up in the air. Now my fingertips are going to go from the navel over 2 inches and down about 2 inches. I always feel my psoas is really sensitive. My psoas is always really tight. So I immediately feel with that 2 inches over 2 inches down, I feel the psoas. I feel that. So keep the pressure on the psoas, and I'll carefully extend the leg. And you can bring the knee to the chest. Lift out like a big pedal, like a big bicycle pedal. Check in with the low spine. Make sure it's down. Ooh, this one gets me. And then we'll go opposite direction. And then releasing leg up, gently remove the fingertips and take the right heel on top of the left knee. Bring the left knee to the chest so you can find a little rocking action. And then find that balance with the hips down. Use the right elbow to push the right knee open and keep the spine nice and long. And then we'll just release the bind. Whichever leg is on top, you're letting it fall to the opposite direction. And you're just going to massage out that hip you just worked. So anything, just rub it around. Try to loosen up the muscles there. And then we'll go to the other side. So coming back through center, one leg down. One leg is going to come into the chest and then release. Squeeze navel to spine, low back is down. And then I'm going to hold into the chest, pull it towards the side, release it out. Let's go 2 more. And then keeping it in, bring it back through center, extending it up. Now I'm going to look for that hip bone. Put the fingertips right underneath the hip bone. I'm holding the muscles, and then I'm going to work that in and out action. Keep the sacrum pulling down to the mat. If the low back is coming up, then you're opening up the ribs here. You want to keep drawing it in and down. And then the leg goes up in the air. The fingertips go navel, 2 inches to the left or 2 inches to the side of the body, and 2 inches down. Hold right at the psoas. You can feel those muscles kicking back to you. This side is always so much easier than my right side for some reason. Let's go 1 more. Oh, we didn't do our circling. Let's do our circling. Few one way, few the opposite way. And then the left foot goes on top of the right knee. You bring the right knee to the chest. You can add a little rock on the sacrum. And then find that balance point with the hips down. You're still getting a stretch. And the arm can push the knee open. Now we're going to let our legs fall into that twist so we can access the hip we just worked. Press it out. Any kind of rubbing, massaging you can do for a moment. And then coming back through center, I'm just going to roll it over to my side. Press it up to seated. It's the easiest way to get up. If you have another way, feel free to do it that way. Okay, let's go. Feet on the ground. And I'm going to take my feet pretty wide, and my hands are to the outside. I'm bound on top of my ankle. As I lift and lower, I'm going to pull the knees out and then roll through the spine. So lift and pull the knees and then back through center. So I'm opening up the hips, but I'm also working the connection with the hips and the spine. Maybe you feel some lengthening across the sacrum. I swear, every time I film these garbage trucks, I don't know how garbage has to be picked up every day in Palisade Road, but for some reason, it seems to have to be picked up every day here. Eesh. Last one. Feet go into Baddha Konasana. So now my heels are together, my toes are together, and I'm working them back to the groin. And I'm just going to let the sits bones come up. As I rock, I'm pushing with my elbows. I'm letting the weight shift. Anything that needs to happen across the hips can happen here. And then I'm going to hold sits bones down. Inhale to lift up tall. On the exhale, use the lat muscles to pull the heart forward and push the legs down. So I'm using those elbows. I'm using my lat muscles. I'm trying to work my forehead closer to the mat. A little trick here, if you tend to have really tight hips, a really tight groin, this is more specifically for the groin, flex the glute muscles, flex the butt muscles, and that should pull the knees a little bit closer to the mat for you. As I release, I'm going to just roll it up, soften the glutes, take the legs out, give it a little shake. And then I'm going to transition into a malasana. So I just walk my feet in, heels in, toes out, take a little breath here. If you struggle getting into malasana, you can put something underneath the heels. You can sit on a block or a pillow. Now the fingertips are going in front. This is some of my favorite movement. As you inhale, I shift to the balls of the feet. I turn the toes back, and I squeeze my ribs and my thighs together. Keep holding. It's a nice forward fold. Keep the entire foot down. And then on the next inhale, we're going to sink it back to Malasana. So heels go in, toes go out, gaze goes up. Inhale to lengthen the spine. Exhale as you shift toes forward, forward fold. Inhale to Malasana. Keep the length in the spine. Exhale. Let's go one more. Inhale, lift. This time, hold your forward fold. Option of bind behind the legs. And now we're going to keep the feet entirely pushing down to the mat, especially the big toe. And just lean over to the right side. Feel the IT band, the outside of the hip. And you can switch to the opposite. The entire foot is down. Lean. And come back through center. Walk it into quadruped, so hands and knees are down. You can work a cat-cow. So as you work this cat-cow, be nice and mobile through the spine. Keep the shoulders back and away from the ears. I'm losing my shirt. Not the right shirt to film in, but that's okay. Cat-cow, we inhale as we open, and we exhale as we close. Let's go for one more. Now find a neutral spine. So you want shoulders and hips about one line, and you're not looking for an arch or a round. You're neutral, and the rib cage is closed. So my abs are still active here in a neutral spine. Now I'm figurating my hips, so I'm just drawing my sits bones right to left. Think about the rib cage and the hip bones, the connection of the ribs and the hips. That's a QL muscle. So as you find the figure eight, you're lengthening all the way through that QL muscle. You're also strengthening the QL muscle. As one side is opening, the other side can be contracting. Then let's hold through center, and we'll just move through the legs. So again, lock into your core. Make sure you have a nice neutral spine. Flex the foot, and let's take it up into a big circle. So I'm not using momentum at all. I'm keeping equal weight in my palms, and I'm thinking about driving from the hips as I open the leg. And then we'll go opposite direction. And then I want to hold in a 90 outside the line of the body. Keep the foot flexed. Try to keep the weight equal in the palm. You're going to bring the heel down, heel up, knee down. Rotate as much as you can, and then switch. Heel down, knee up. Rotate as much as you can. So try to push that limit a little bit. Don't just stop when it's easy. You want to push it so you feel the rotation. You feel the femur in the hip joint. Let's go one more. And then bring it down. Give a little shake out. Feel free to go into a downward facing dog. Walk the legs out. And then we'll come down for the other side. So knees down, quadruped, lock into the core. Totally the wrong shirt. That's okay. Hopefully the mic is still there. So make sure the abs are nice and strong. Equal weight between the palms. You have a flex in the opposite foot, and you're lifting to open. So if your body is bouncing around all over, then you're using momentum. See how I'm nice and stable? I'm not bouncing around. I'm focusing on using the hip muscles. I switch directions if you didn't notice. Take a couple the opposite way. And then I'm going to hold the 90. I'm going to pull heel up, knee down, squeeze, squeeze, squeeze. And then heel down, knee up, squeeze, squeeze, squeeze. This is very fatiguing for those deep hip muscles. Shoot for at least 3. If you have the time, do more of these. Hi. And then come back to center. So now I'm going to take my toes out wide. And I'm going to keep my toes nice and soft. And if I look down, my knees are pretty close together. They're pretty much in line with the hips. But I want to make sure that the toes are way outside the line of the hip. On the exhale, push back through the hips. Don't go all the way down. You're just putting a little pressure back. And you feel some different kind of stretch across the pelvis. So it's kind of turning our hip bones and releasing the top of the hip line. Right around the sacrum. I'm going to gently come forward. This time I'm going to flex my foot, put them down, keep them wide, and then exhale to draw back one more time. And coming back through center. Excellent. Tap out the toes. Cross the ankles to go back to seated. And if you want to do one more hip stretch, you always have lunges and different things like that, like more traditional yoga poses. I'm always in more of favor of the mobility and the movement and just kind of getting through the joints and getting them warmed up. But you can also go into a deeper hip stretch if you want to hold for a while. You can do a fire log pose. So if I was facing the top of my mat, my shin would be parallel to the top of the mat, and then the other foot, same thing. Shin is parallel to the top of the mat. Now I can look forward and see my toes because my toes are not in line with the leg. The toes are in front. So I have parallel shins. My knee and my heel is in one line, and my bottom knee and heel is in one line as well. So now toes are in front. I can sit up nice and tall on the sits bones and breathe here. Go for rounded in the spine. It helps to think about drawing down through the sitting bones. It'll lift and lengthen the spine for you. Keep the feet flexed, protect the knees. You have the option to go into a fold after you take some breaths at the top. And this is one where you can sit and you can hold for 2-3 minutes, longer if you'd like. And then rolling it back up. Now when I come up, I want to keep energy in the feet. I kind of lean back, bring my leg with me, and then anything you need. I like to take it to the opposite direction into a half frog, like a 90 on the outside leg, and just move the hip around. And then we'll switch sides. So now that leg comes back in. The opposite leg goes on top, and it's the same thing. Heel, knee, one line, shins parallel to the top of the mat. There's energy in the feet to protect the knee joints. And then I'm sitting up nice and tall on the sits bones. There's plenty of space to breathe. Keep the flex in the foot. Start walking it forward. It's a hinge right at the hip. And then coming back up through center. And now lean, release the top leg, any kind of movement you need, or you can take it into a 90, that half frog, and just work through the hip a little bit. And we'll come back to center. So there's lots and lots and lots of things you can do for the hip, but to keep things really simple, just think about moving from the hip, holding some squeezes, releasing, shaking things out, finding a deep stretch, and then at least you'll get some hip movement. Hands on the hips, doing any kind of massaging. I try to do some of that every single day, and that's my biggest feedback in class is people who are consistently with me, their hips have a lot of improvement and a lot of flexibility, and that includes emotional problems when we work in the hips, all sorts of things. So get to those hips every day. Hope you enjoyed that video. Please like and subscribe. It helps me a ton, and I appreciate your support so much. And if you're on Instagram or Facebook, I have the House of Chi yoga page on there as well. You have to type in the yoga, otherwise it won't pop up. Okay, see you all next time. I'm off to coffee break.